Good morning. This is another insight while fasted. I was thinking about a ethical case that was presented to us in medical school, and it was something like this. There was a premature infant born. It seemed, given the week's gestation, that the infant would not survive, no matter what nursing or staff or providers would do for that baby at the time. But all they knew for sure was that the baby would be delivered, and the question was what to do about it. We had sort of discussion about futility, and evidently at this hospital in particular, there was sort of this informal understanding of a yellow code, which was basically people trying to make some almost like ceremonial efforts to save the child's life, the infant's life, but to ultimately understand nothing is going to come of it. And we finished this case after a lot of discussion, and one of the final questions was, Dr. Pete, how would you have managed it? And I think what we need to recognize is that sometimes our traditions can really save us, physically, mentally, spiritually. And what I remembered is that in the Orthodox Church, we sort of have this tradition of prayers that are said for the baby on various days. And historically, there was an understanding that you name the baby on such a day, you say prayers over the baby at such and such a day, you baptize the baby at such and such a time. And I remember in particular a tradition that we have where we say prayers on the 8th day. So I said, hey, even if this was futile, I think it's important that we at least make an effort to keep this baby alive long enough to say these particular prayers over the child and maybe even baptize it. And it doesn't mean that we keep going on beyond that, but if we can get that far, that would be something I would go for. And everyone in the room was kind of like, it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, like, what a waste of time. It's futile, right? Let's just give up right away. But like I said, I had a certain goal in mind, I had a certain time frame in mind, and I also had an understanding that, given that timeline, at some point we would say, if this is all we can do, let the baby go. What was so funny about that response was that another medical student who was in that group stood up right away and said, you know what, actually, Pete, I was one of those babies. I was born so prematurely that they primed my parents that, I was not going to likely survive. And as the parents considered different things to do, to just abort the baby, let the baby die on the table after delivery, try to keep this baby alive forever, they said, you know what, we're at least going to let the baby survive long enough to have the priest come and baptize the baby. And with all the logistics, etc., it took like several days to orchestrate all of that. And lo and behold, in this particular case, the baby was allowed to and supported to survive a number of days. They baptized the baby, and somehow this child survived ultimately, and one day, I can tell you and attest this is true, became a doctor. So by all means, sometimes our traditions are there for our benefit. They give us what seems like arbitrary goals, but they give us a timeline. And it's not to say that we should just keep punching at futility forever, but it gives us at least a window of hope to consider and reconsider and see what happens. And sometimes in that window, a lot of good can come of it, like saving a person's life that might someday go on to do some really great things for a lot of people.